your mind, your heart. Let's have a school choice conversation. Open your eyes, your mind, your heart. Let's have a school choice conversation.
Welcome to Choice Conversations. We're joined today by Ann Duplessis. Ann is president of the Louisiana Federation for Children, national board member of the American Federation for Children, and senior vice president of retail banking at Liberty Bank and Trust in New Orleans. Ann, welcome to Choice Conversations.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Great to be back.
I was going to say, I should say, welcome back to Choice Conversations. And you actually were the first guest on the show back in October of 2018. And of course, our world has changed so dramatically since then in so many ways, the last 2.5 years. When you think specifically about education here in Louisiana, what do you see as the biggest change over the last couple of years?
You know, Monica, you're absolutely right. I mean, that the idea that the world has changed in the last 2 years, and actually in the last year has drastically, changed. Education was one that, was rooted previously in tradition, right? We had to do things one way. There was resistance to alternative methods of educating our kids. Over the last year, we all have come to learn that being able to pivot and being able to adapt new and innovative methods to reach our kids, and so that they are able to respond and able to continue their education, has been the biggest, I think, challenge and change for us. Of course, we have moved into an era of virtual learning, and it served a tremendous purpose. But the most, I think, immediate thing that I can think of is how it is now allowing for people who couldn't fathom doing something like this in the past, or fathom educational choices or innovation, are now saying we need to adopt some of this stuff. We need to look at how we can do things differently. And, actually, as I go around and talk to school leaders, the idea of virtual learning may be altered a bit with regards to kids coming back into the classroom, and that's their primary place of learning. But the alternative could be virtual when a kid is sick, when there is some extenuating circumstance that child may not be able to come to the classroom. We now have allowed for alternatives.
Right. And one of the words we learned during the last year is the Zoom. Some folks are very familiar, but many people didn't know what Zoom was, how to use Zoom. Some embraced it. Some parents are saying, I can't wait for that to be in my rearview mirror. But the truth is, there's going to be some kind of hybrid or some kind of where we have that flexibility. What do you think it has taught us about how we deliver education, how parents are also a vital role in that, and not just really dropping the children off and entrusting the teachers to teach during the day?
Yeah, I think we're still learning about the impact of that, right? We know that, and all of us, even us grandparents, experience it when we're trying to help our kids or our grandkids with homework, just with regular homework. We know that our teachers, our educators teach one way in the classroom, and our moms and dads and grandparents support with homework a different way. And so there's always this battle, like, this is only the way I know it, only one way, so we're just gonna do your homework this way, right? And so I think that what it has taught us is that it showed us that this pandemic and the virtual learning and the Zoom learning really did impact not only the process and the method of educating kids and children being able to adapt, but it caused the entire family structure to figure out how to adapt. right? Instead of just helping with homework, now parents were 100% engaged while trying to work and do their virtual work from home. I think that it teaches us that we do have to have more more learning with our educators on, again, alternative methods, and how to we have to dig deep in how do we impact have a positive impact on kids from with alternative learning, and not rely as much on parents to be another primary educator, right? Because when you got two different ways of providing, instruction, it does seem to have some negative impact. But I think we have learned that we again we have to begin to adapt and embrace different methods of teaching.
Well, and in a recent survey, 54.8% of parents who participated in the Louisiana Scholarship Program said their scholarship school had actually handled COVID-19, and this is the word, perfectly.
Nice.
39.8% of parents said schools handled the pandemic as well as could be expected, and 4.1% said more could have been done. Does this indicate that private schools did a good job when it came to responding to the pandemic?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think the numbers speak for themselves. But I think that perhaps what may have been a factor in that is that in many cases, private schools, or even, in some instances, charter schools are accustomed to being allowed to change, or being allowed to do something different, when different mean is better, right? When they realize that what they're doing now isn't working or is impactful, so let's pivot and let's try and do something different. And so that perhaps played a role, because the idea of not going into the classroom, or having to alter the normacy of what we do, was not as new, right? And thus allowed for better transition.
Right. Did you see any, or do you see any positives? And I'm sometimes using the word positive, may kind of like put a band-aid over what we have experienced or what we're continuing to experience. But do you see any positives coming out of where we are with this pandemic?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, the pandemic has in many cases, I think, created some efficiencies, and some abilities to multitask a little better. And maybe in some cases that may not be as great, because I can be on two meetings at one time, right? Just at two computers. But from an educational standpoint, I think that, again, it allows for schools now, and school leaders and educators, to have multiple options of how they deliver education. It allows for an acceptance of, as we've seen in the past, but if a school can now provide a different curriculum to their kids, because of virtual learning. Now a school can go and contract with a teacher in Australia, right, to provide a certain type of curriculum that they wouldn't be able to do. They wouldn't have the resources, or that teacher isn't local, so that they couldn't use their resources. But this opens the world to educators. It opens the world to kids. And now, instead of, we can use the virtual learning, and virtual access to get information and learning all over the world.
That's fantastic. And some are even comparing what this door of opportunity presents, similar to after Katrina, post Katrina, how some changes, particularly here in Louisiana, were made. Do you see any wholesale changes as a result of COVID-19? Or are you going to see maybe just some, people are doing different things and everybody is doing what's best for their
Yeah,
parents?
I think people are going to do what's best and hope and that for their parents and for their population of students, and that's the beauty of choice, right? Um, One size does not fit all. So wholesale does not, but an acceptance of a school's ability to change or to do something different or to adapt a new process is what I see is gonna be, gonna happen. I think that that you know I see that the state is what here in Louisiana and in other states, they have really truly began to focus on early childhood education, which is critical, right? That preschool and kindergarten, we have to get our kids in those structured environments early, on, so that they have a greater opportunity for success as they matriculate through K through 12. So I see, I'm encouraged at the legislation and the focus that have been authored this for this legislative session that tries to impact early childhood opportunities.
Do you hear conversations about things going back to where they were, back to normal? Are we at a point where the conversation is shifting, that no one's really trying to get back to the way it was, but
This
to
is
embrace
normal. This
this
is
normal?
normal. I mean, literally, now this is the, I hate to use it, the new norm, right? And so people will use this now as a option, right? They will use virtual as an option. And that option, this option, I think, has had some tremendous benefits, not only in business, in education. I mean, school leaders and educators can now have access to for themselves to continuing ed, and, on their lunch break, instead of having to do it during the summer, or instead of having to take a year off. And I mean, you can learn, you can use this means to learn anywhere. I mean, the pandemic has also, you know taught us to I would say value life and value family. I would hope that it has taught us to trust more in God, and I know I did and do.
Yes.
um, and so, yes, there was some. The pandemic was horrible and is horrible, and it caused a lot of folk to their businesses to go under. It caused a lot of people to lose money. A lot of strain on families, a lot of strain on employees and employers. Um, but I think we have to look at some of the things that it did allow, and take that and run with it.
I'd like you to put your former elected official hat on for just a moment. And Louisiana is receiving billions of dollars in pandemic related federal funding. How do we make sure that these dollars are used positively to impact education from early childhood that you talked about to even higher ed?
Yeah, and I think that I'm encouraged very much so with our current legislative delegation, our elected officials in Baton Rouge. I really am encouraged that we all are kind of on the same page with this, because it what COVID, and the impact didn't just affect a certain, I guess, class or a certain individual or a certain group of folk. It impacted everyone, right? And so I am encouraged that they're going to pass the right laws, and that will mandate that these funds be used a certain way, and specifically to help with COVID relief efforts.
You've expressed hope and optimism, even opportunity. Doors are opening. But what do you see as the biggest education challenge or challenges for Louisiana as we move forward?
I think, although I believe we are, and I've seen the numbers, we are making good strides with our graduation rates. I think the biggest challenge is still allowing for families to design their children's and their educational experience. The biggest challenge is still having the resources there that will allow for a family to change a child. If a child isn't doing well in one environment, having the resources to place that child in the environment that works best for them. So, my hope is that we continue our efforts to allow the money that's available to follow the child. Um, Again, with all of the pulls on the purse strings from every other source, that is still going to be, how do we decide the priorities? But this has to be a priority, and so that I think is still going to be the biggest challenge, but is perhaps the most important piece for us to look at in Louisiana that will bring more positive outcomes for our kids.
And you are involved with a very exciting project. It's
Yeah.
a community project in the New Orleans Ninth Ward area. Many people have been familiar with the name Ninth Ward since Katrina. But tell us about the Ninth Ward Stadium project at George Washington Carver High School.
Oh man, this is a tremendous project. This is a project, as you know, that started 10 plus years ago, and unfortunately was not able to be carried out. Arnie Filco actually is the mastermind behind revitalizing this effort. He came to me because he knew that I had a very special, had worked on the project in the past, and had a very special place in my heart for Ninth Ward. As you know, I represented the Ninth Ward when I was an elected official. This project is going to absolutely be the catalyst to with economic reform, economic opportunities in the Ninth Ward, but not only from an economic standpoint, but these kids deserve it, right? Education is not just about reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? Education is about a complete experience. And that experience is either, giving that child an opportunity for the art, to take advantage of the arts, athletics, whatever that is, as we like to call it, extracurricular, but it isn't. It helps to develop the full child, and so the chance to give that community, and not only that community, because it's a stadium that will be available to all Louisiana, or New Orleans public and schools, and of course charter schools or public schools, that it's going to be world class, and so they deserve to have a facility that is new, it's vibrant, and it allows them to feel very special, because not too often do they and the community receive things or get things that are high quality, high class, and so it is our goal to ensure that this project is completed. It's completed with the most highest integrity, and that at the end of the day, it will be a facility, again, that will be managed and run by Orleans Parish School Board, but it will be a facility that we can all be very proud of.
It does indeed sound exciting. And thank you for being with us once again on Choice Conversations. It's great to have a two-timer.
Thank you. And you are wonderful as always. Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you so much. And thanks to all of you for joining us once again for Choice Conversations.